Okay, so we're going to go on to our next session. So we're not able to discuss individual situations here, but we've put in a number of different individual emails that you guys can contact to talk about your individual circumstances. And, please do reach out to them to discuss your circumstances if you'd like. As I've mentioned before, we'll be sending a link of the recorded session, the presentation, the Q&As, which will be available on the website. And I've put a shortcut link at the top there for you as well. So let's welcome our speakers. We have got this is going to be interesting, isn't it? We have got 3 fantastic speakers today with a wealth of experience, passion and insight to their roles. And let me introduce firstly, we've got Susie Walter Jeffries. Susie has been part of the West Bank for 5 years and brings both professional expertise and personal experience as a carer. She plays a key role in building partnerships and developing holistic support for carers across Devon. Her commitments to improving services in both inspiring and impactful. Next, we'll hear from Paddy Ague. Paddy has been with Devon Young Carers for 5 years and is a passionate advocate for young people. He works tirelessly to ensure that young carers have a voice and support they need to thrive. His dedication to empowerment and young people really shines through in everything that he does. And finally, Catherine St. John, social worker, has joined from Devon County Council and has been in a role for 3.5 years. She is deeply committed to helping carers understand their rights, supporting them in their caring roles. Her focus on empowerment and sustainability in care is a vital part of our work. So please join me in giving them a warm welcome. So some of the topics that we're going to cover today, briefly, a brief overview is we're going to start by exploring some support systems for parent carers, young carers, and adult carers throughout the transition process, including hearing from those with lived experience, ensuring that they have the necessary resources and assistance. I'm now going to hand over to Catherine to start us off. All right.
So Devon Carers have been working with carers for many years. We talk to and collaborate with carers to shape our services to support in areas that matter to people. So when we talk about transition, just to get a shared understanding, we're talking about parent carers or another adult, for instance, an auntie or a sibling or a guardian, who continue to provide support to a young person once they've transitioned into adulthood. So like any major life event, it's going to have some kind of emotional impact, both upon the young person transitioning into adulthood and their carer. So for anyone approaching or going through this, please know that what you're feeling is felt by many carers and that you're not alone. So as a parent carer or a carer of a young person with additional needs, we know that you've had to take control, act as protector and take the lead in medical appointments and with education over the years. But when the young person reaches the age of 18, you will be asked to come alongside or to step back. So it's recognised this is also a significant transition for carers. We want to go through some myths and myth busting throughout this webinar, and I'm going to start by saying there's a myth that parent carers are overprotective of the person they care for and that they don't see their potential for independence, which is so often untrue. So the focus of our webinar today is to talk to you about the support available for parent carers, adult carers of adults, young carers and young adult carers before, during and after transition. We'll talk to you a bit about caring roles and the recognition of that transitional impact. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the laws and the legal changes that come into play once a young person reaches adulthood, and a lot about carers' rights, the right to be consulted and to continue to be involved in assessment and support planning for the person you care for as the expert partner in care. So next slide, please. It's really important to start with some shared understanding and definitions. When we talk about a young carer, that's somebody under the age of 18 who is supporting another person. A young adult carer. When a young carer reaches the age of 18 and will be continuing to support an adult who has care and support needs, they will go through their own transition to become a young adult carer. And then parent carer or adult carer of an adult, supporting a young person with care and support needs once they transition into adulthood. I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague Paddy to talk about young carers.
Thanks, Catherine. Next slide, please, Debbie. So, who are young carers? So a young carer, the definition is a young carer is someone under the age of 18 who helps look after or cares for someone. It could be a friend, a family member, due to illness, disability, a mental health problem, addiction, or cannot cope without their support. Recent stats show that 1 in 5 children are young carers, and up to 51% of young carers spend 20 to 49 hours per week caring. Next slide, please. So the impact of being a young carer. So the impact of being a young carer can have an effect on education and attainment. It can have an effect on mental health for the young carer, their social time and opportunities, and having to put the needs of the cared for before their own. But not all impacts are negative. Young carers have a higher level of resilience than their peers, a great set of life skills, the ability to talk with adults and professionals about their caring role, and form a closer bond with their cared for person. And young carers become experts in their own life, usually quite early on. So don't assume what they want. Next slide, please. So, young carers' acts and rights. So young carers are entitled to an assessment of need. This is to make sure the young carer is given the information they need, that they are not taking on inappropriate or excessive care, that the caring role doesn't make them feel worried, sad, lonely, or makes their health worse, that they miss time with friends, this affects their education negatively, or any future goals. So the Children and Families Act 2014 strengthens the right of young carers in England, ensuring they're assessed for their own needs, regardless of their age, the duration, or the nature of their caring responsibilities. The Act sets out how council should work with young carers and adult carers of disabled children, parent carers, to plan an effective and timely move to transition or to the adult care and support system using a whole family approach. So, understanding transitions as a young carer. Next slide, thank you. So young carers have, the Young Carers Rights cover transitions to adulthood. This is outlined in the Children's and Families Act 2014 and the Care Act 2014. These rights ensure that they receive the right support and assistance as they move from being a young carer to an adult, including access to a transition assessment. The transition assessment is separate from a young carer's assessment. It's about how the different services for children and for the adults will affect the young carer when they become 18. Slide, please, Debbie. So the transition assessment. So at Devon Young Carers, the transition assessment we look at includes future wishes for the young carer, what is needed to achieve this, what help the young carer needs, if the young carer wants to continue their caring role, what the caring role may look like after the transition, and the cared for's needs and help and support that is available to them. We can then share the information from the transition assessment with staff at college or university so they have an understanding on how to help, offer signposting and support throughout the transition process. The transition assessment can be shared with Devon carers. The transition assessments can start from the age of 14. We offer all registered young carers a transition assessment before they turn 18. And the transition assessment can be completed by any professional working with a young carer. Next slide, please, Debbie. So at Devon Young Carers, we have created a Young Carers Passport. It's a simple one-page document that can be used at any stage or transition in the young carer's life. Any young carer, a family member or professional working with a young carer can access and complete the Young Carers Passport. So the purpose of the Young Carers Passport is so that the young carer does not have to repeat their story, and the right people in their life are aware that they are a young carer, how this affects them, and ways that they want to be supported. The Young Carers Passport can then be shared with any professional setting that the young carer or family wishes. So this could be school tutors, a head of year at school transition when starting a new school, with a family GP or a youth worker. This allows school, professional, or any adult working with a young carer to have a greater understanding of the impact of the caring role, ways to help them, and to make reasonable adjustments to support them. Next slide, please, Debbie. Thank you very much. Specialist support. So our service, Devon Young Carers, are commissioned by Devon County Council to provide specialist support for young carers who provide high level of care or care that is not age appropriate. That specialist support looks like a young carer's needs assessment, a whole family approach, advocacy for the young carer, safety planning, school support, working alongside professionals working with the family. This could be an early help, a team around the families, child in need meetings, or child protections. We also look at the social opportunities for that young carer. And then we also look at the transition to adult assessments. Next is going to be a video from Chrissy, who is a parent carer.
And
Hello, Chrissy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
yeah, hi. So
Devon.
my name is Chrissy Franklin. I'm a manager with Devon Carers, but I also, for me, very importantly, I'm a parent carer, and I thought it would be really important to come and speak to you today because this is a subject you wish to discuss.
I know that you have successfully been through a transition with your own daughter. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your daughter and some of the challenges that she's got.
Yes, certainly. So she was diagnosed in her teenage years with type 1 diabetes, and then about 4 months later with epilepsy. And it came at a time when obviously she was doing mocks and for GCSEs. So the impact was immense with time off from school and how that kind of led to her self-belief and confidence. So a lot of my time as a parent was going between the medical professionals and educators to try and just get it right for her to be in that space, to continue to learn, but also for her to try and recognise how she still fitted into that school environment and her peers. So that's where it started for me, was learning to be the voice of a parent carer. It's really hard to get that balance of being a parent and being a carer right. So I think there was also an understanding that I needed to step back. And often as parents, we don't want to step back and leave our child isolated or then without a friendship group. But we also need to kind of trust sometimes they do know what they want.
So what made a difference for her? How did she move on?
Moving into college and recognising that there were others who had a medical condition or who had maybe a neurodivergent need, and being able to talk with those others really helped her. In university, that's been such a huge shift for her. So she went a year later, she took a year out, and was obviously nervous and anxious, but has just fallen into a community of young people who are supporting her.
So it was a transition for you as well,
Yes.
then, wasn't it? As kind of almost handed it over to others to kind of provide that support to your daughter.
And talking to universities and college as well. So I went to open events with my daughter and we actively encouraged her to go and talk to the student services and to the medical departments, etc., and student support, just so we could understand what they could do for her. I was recognised as struggling with my daughter's health conditions probably about 2 years after the diagnosis, and they offer counselling support to young people when they are newly diagnosed or reflecting on their diagnosis. And they very kindly offered that counselling service to me. So that was a huge step for me to kind of take on board how it affected me, and that I wasn't being ignored or left to one side because my daughter was becoming an adult, that they recognised that it was still a journey for both of us.
Is there anything else that you feel as a parent carer was helpful to you?
I guess it's been, for me, it was about the importance of recognising my daughter becoming an adult as well, And it doesn't happen overnight. It needs to be right for you and right for them. But as parent carers, we also need to recognise where we want our role to be with them next. Do we want to just return to being a parent? It is really important to start the conversation as early as possible. We know that some schools will take the young person up to 18, 19, 20. So recognising the individual need of each family is really important. Recognising where your young person is. I would also suggest that whenever you're with professionals, that the young person is able to say that they want the parent carer to be part of the process, to be potentially verbalizing for them in some instances, so that it doesn't become a battle between the professionals saying they can only talk to the cared for person and that the carer can't be part of that. And talk to your young person. You know, it's a huge different world for them. They might be scared. They quite rightly sometimes refuse some of the adult services because it's scary and it's unknown to them. So give them time to settle into that area and then maybe revisit some of the services that are being offered, because that then might be the right time.
Are you in the presenter view? Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so listening to Chrissy there, I'm sure there's a lot of questions that some of you are thinking around today, and some of those that we hear a lot of are those included on that slide there around, you know, how do I plan for long-term care and housing stability? What support is there for developing life skills and independence, etc.? So when a young person with additional needs reaches the age of 18, in law, their parent or responsible adult is considered an unpaid carer. So just reminding ourselves of what that is and what Paddy was saying earlier. So it is providing that support on a regular basis, that without that support, that person would not manage independently. And it's really important to recognise that actually all of us will become a carer or be cared for, or both at some point during our lifetime. Devon Carers, we support over 33,000 carers at the moment, but 2,364 of those care for an adult child. Just over 900 are supporting a child with a developmental condition, for example, Asperger's, autism, or perhaps a learning disability. And there's an additional 2,811 with other developmental conditions. And it's really important, as Catherine was referring to earlier, around the myths. So being an unpaid carer, having that extra identity, it's not dependent upon the receipt or the eligibility to carer's allowance. It's not down to whether you provide personal care to that person. You don't have to live with the person that you care for. You don't need to be related to the person you care for. And most importantly, and Catherine's going to come back to this later on, is there's an expectation to care, but the carer has to be willing and able to care. Next slide, please, Debbie. Over to you, Catherine.
Apologies, I was on mute, sorry. So what we're going to cover in this slide is we're going to go through the legislative changes and what they mean. What I'm going to cover is with regard to adults. So for young people and children under the age of 18, carers can continue to request a parent needs assessment from Devon County Council in order to get support. So this is with regard to adults. So it's really important that carers understand the changes in legislation, which also lays out their legal rights when the young person whom they are supporting reaches adulthood at the age of 18. It's important they continue to be recognised as expert partners in care. So the acts of legislation I'm going to cover in this slide is the Care Act 2014. What that says is unpaid carers are recognised in law in the same way as those they care for. The rights include placing a duty on local authorities to prevent, reduce and delay the need for support, including that of carers, placing a duty on local authorities to provide information and advice to carers regarding their caring role as well as their own needs, an emphasis on promoting independence and well-being, giving carers a right to have an assessment and a right for those eligible needs to be met. What's absolutely vitally important, and Susie's just covered that, within that act of legislation It states that the carer is willing to continue to care and that that caring role is sustainable. So the next act of legislation is the Health and Care Act 2022. Now this places a duty on national health bodies to work alongside local authorities in delivering support to carers. What that actually means is that carers have got additional rights and provisions to be involved in discussions about care, treatment and hospital discharge planning. So carers have a right to be involved, including making informed decisions about how much care they're willing to provide when the person leaves hospital. The Carers Leave Act 2023. So all carers in paid employment are entitled to 1 week of unpaid carers leave per year. Touching upon the Caring Well in Devon, it's not an act of legislation, but what it does describe is that Devon carers have been given the delegated duty under the Care Act for unpaid carers. And we have to work closely with the local authority during transitions to ensure that carers are supported during this process. So as part of that preparation, Devon carers are able to offer a carers assessment when the young person they provide support for reaches the age of 17 and a half. So at this point in the person's life, a plan should begin to be being made to understand and explore what adult services who might be involved with that young person and what that looks like. And then there's the Mental Capacity Act 2005, which is a very important act of legislation for adults. I'm not going to go in any detail in that, but I would urge you all to watch the next webinar, the June webinar, which is going to be devoted to this subject. So next slide, please.
Okay, so just looking at some additional carers' rights here. So carers have, along with others, the request to the right to request flexible working from day one. And there's that right as well to identify as a carer with your GP. And in doing that, you are then coded on their system and therefore being able to access any support, additional support that the practice might offer. For example, it might give that a double appointment when you take the person you care for with you to give that extra time for explaining, etc. It also might ask you to come forward at certain times for different things that they are offering, different campaigns they're providing, and also the right to receive that free flu jab, which is vitally important when you're caring for a vulnerable person. And then equally the protection against discrimination or harassment, particularly in the workplace, but we should all be protected from discrimination or harassment anyway. But these are really fundamental and do apply specifically to carers. Next slide, please, Debbie.
So just a bit of a recap. We've talked about when young people transition into adulthood a bit, and Paddy in his presentation talked a bit more in detail about when young carers transition to be a young adult carer. Next video is going to be showing you from a parent carer's perspective what that transition process was like for her, and also give you some additional top tips. So next slide, please.
Transition today, if that's okay. And your experiences of going from a parent carer into a carer of a young adult, and how you found that transition.
I think that's part of my role as a parent carer was less caring and actually being an advocate all the way through that period from even 12 years old to help with the school right the way through to 21. I would say I'm going to be an advocate until he's at least 26.
Yes, very much so, and then possibly even longer.
Even longer, quite likely. I'd like to say he's officially an adult at 18 and he can vote. That's fantastic, but he can't quite cope with some things that an adult at 18 might be able to cope with until he's a little bit older.
And so that transition period for you kind of needed to be a bit more flexible then, didn't it?
Definitely.
Transition at the moment, for all parents, it's going to be different for everybody, but actually the level of challenge there is, how do I support my child through this, and where do I then feed into it? How do you feel the transition process was for you as the carer and having your voice heard within that?
I have to say my experience is a couple of years old now. It's tricky. Different systems seem to include the carer more than other systems.
Yes.
And so as a carer, you're sort of advocating for yourself as well. You have to keep reminding the service that you're advocating for your son or daughter. And that's just something that's part of the job, unfortunately, to say, I'm here on behalf of. Once they realise you're there, they are much more inclusive. You have to be an advocate not only for your offspring, for your son or daughter, but for yourself as well. And make sure, keep reminding the service that you're there, that you're the main point of contact. I know that the child will often have two parents.
Yeah.
Try and pick one parent as the main point of contact. Actually, one email, one. That way you're always in the loop.
Yeah.
And keep advocating for yourself. It's hard to do, but persistence pays off.
It does work in the end.
It does.
What are your kind of top tips for parents and carers who are going through transition with their care for place?
First thing is don't panic.
Very good one.
Yeah, don't panic. It helps to stay calm for your offspring as well. It helps to stay calm for everybody, and have reasonable conversations with everybody. Try to hear it from everyone's point of view. It helps to talk to everybody who meets your child. So if you can get to talk to the special educational needs coordinator at the school, have an early conversation as soon as possible if you've got any concerns at all. If you can then talk to their teachers.
Get the bigger picture.
Get the bigger picture. Parent-teacher evenings are really helpful. Try and get there as early as possible. Try and get in as early as possible. Most teachers I met were happy to talk to me even outside parent-teacher evenings because they're as concerned about your child as you are, and it helps to get their perspective.
And there is that kind of perception around secondary schools that the teachers don't want to speak to you, but actually you found.
I found the teachers very, very helpful in that each teacher was giving me a slightly different angle, but actually there was a consistency to my child's behaviour in the classroom that showed that he needed some help. And they were as concerned as anybody that he needed some help.
Yeah.
And it was, in fact, one of the teachers who said, he thought of getting an autism assessment. And I thought, we need to move this forward.
Yeah.
And so it's quite tricky under the circumstances. Autism assessments, there's always a delay.
That there is. Yeah.
You've got to talk to your GP, and you've got to get to talk to lots of people, but talk to people, convince people, advocate for your child through the system.
Get it written down as well.
Get it written down if you can. Most schools will give you it in writing if they can. Tends not to be from the teacher, tends to be from the special educational needs coordinator, so somebody a bit higher than the teacher. But if you can get the teacher to talk to the special educational needs coordinator as well, that can be really, really useful. Get people talking about your child and get the information you need in writing so that you can put a case together to get an autism assessment done and a diagnosis as soon as you can.
Brilliant. That's lovely.
So when Laura talked about referring for an autism assessment, we know there are a long waiting list to have an assessment for autism, and it's important to point out that a referral can be made to the Transition to Adult Services team in Devon County Council for an assessment, support and guidance during the transition period, irrespective of whether there's a definitive diagnosis. So next slide, please, Debbie. Susie?
Thank you. So transition can feel really daunting and challenging with a really difficult run up to the change, and that loss of what's already in place. And these are some of the top tips from parents and carers, and we'll go through them briefly. So try not to ignore it, no matter how daunting it can be. Try and plan ahead and make sure you understand what will change, and have a look, actually, what is it that the young person wants to do now? Is it thoughts around college or an apprenticeship, or is that something that's not appropriate for the person that you're caring for? And you'll build those questions over time, and there's nothing worse than trying to keep it all in your head. So keep a pen and paper, or whether you record digitally, keep everything down and keep those questions there so you're confident that you've got everything there that you want to go and ask the appropriate professionals for. And the real key part of that is establishing that really good communication with professionals to help you understand the process. And just remember, each one of us is so individual, and so it's so important that we understand these processes in a way that is right for each one of us. Next slide, please, Debbie.
So we're going to talk here about it's okay to ask for help. So we hear about the impacts of caring from our carers that we work with. We hear about exhaustion, fear, frustration, loss, confusion, etc. And often these impacts are hidden from view. We think about young carers and how their needs might change when an older sibling, for instance, transitions to adulthood and might move back from residential school back into the home. We remember also there's also positive impacts of caring, and we never forget that. And that is a theme that should go right through everything we talk about. Let's talk firstly about emotional impacts. It's important to challenge any assumption that in continuing to care, the impact is not that great. And that is something that we do in our work with carers and with adult social care and any other stakeholder. We keep giving that consistent message. So these impacts may well resonate with the parent carers and carers in this audience. The impacts are in addition to navigating this whole transition process and then having concerns about the future plans for the young person that are supported. If you look at physical impacts, carers' self-care can often be forgotten due to the demands of the caring role, for example, having time for themselves, a break from the caring, attending medical appointments. Sometimes there's poor sleep patterns, poor diet, exercise, and finding time for exercise becomes a problem. And we hear about social interaction, social isolation, and loneliness being an impact on caring. Looking at financial impacts, reduced income due to reduced working hours, or being unable to work due to full-time caring responsibilities. Sometimes there's issues of debt or difficulties in keeping up to date with benefit changes, eligibility criteria, when you can claim, when you can't claim, and sometimes housing needs. Houses might need to be changed to put in adaptations, and sometimes that might mean private landlords think about terminating tenancy. So there's a lot of stresses and impacts in caring. So to kind of bring a summary into the impacts of carers, Devon carers exist to support carers, and it's okay to ask for help. No carer should feel they're alone and they have no one to turn to. And we know that carers begin working with Devon carers, they start by being focused on the person they care for, and they really only want solutions to be found for them to make things easier. And if by association the carer also gets a benefit from that, then they're grateful for that. With parent carer also transitioning, a parent carer or a carer of a young person transitioning into adulthood, there will have been a focus throughout the childhood having to be the advocate and the person that's been consulted. It's a seismic shift for a parent carer to support a young adult with care and support needs when there's new legislation that comes into play, like the Mental Capacity Act, and the carers trying to find their place as a continued expert partner in care. So what we do, and it's essential, is to focus on the carer and find out what matters to them, making sure that they're at the centre of all decisions made and helping them to find solutions to meet their outcomes and promote their independence. Again, please remember, Devon carers are here to help. So next slide, please, Debbie.
Okay, so Devon Carers are commissioned jointly by Devon County Council and NHS Devon to provide this support and the information and advice, including the carers assessments for adult carers of adults. And so the purpose of that support is really to prevent and reduce and delay the need for additional health and social care services. And West Bank, we've been supporting carers for over 25 years. And we're going to look at the carers offer in Devon, and we're going to start with the carer assessment. I'm going to ask Catherine to take us through that.
Okay, I'm going to do this very briefly. Okay, so we're talking about carers assessments. That's embedded in the legislation Care Act 2014. It lays out the local authority having a duty to complete both the transition assessment for the young person who's moving to adulthood and for their carer. So good practice is for contact to be made and established from year 9 and for assessments to be completed by the time the young person reaches 17 and a half, ready for adulthood at 18. The aim is to establish a transition process to adult services that is well managed and supports everyone. But only 10% of carers who come to Devon Carers require a carers assessment, which might find eligible need for replacement care for the person with care and support needs, which will give the carer a break from the caring role, and for consideration of a personal budget. So only 10% of those. So that means 90% of carers that come to our front door can be supported in many additional ways, which is what Susie's going to continue to go through now.
Thanks, Catherine. So I'm just going to pick out a few that are really pertinent, perhaps at this moment in time for you. Our emergency plan sits very much in line with the NHS long-term plan, and it's a real key tool for you to be able to put together and feel reassured around if anything happened to you, what would happen to the young person that you're caring for. And what happens with that emergency plan is you keep it in a safe place there. We keep a copy within our database. We also share that with, obviously with your consent, we share that with the out of hours GP service, so that can be accessed, and also with your GP so that it can be coded and registered on that GP practice. And then very soon it will be accessible as well through secondary care. So to take that extra pressure off, and also to think about next steps, you know, is the person I care for, do they have a progressive illness, and what do I need to look at when I need to sort of escalate that plan to a better and higher level to match the change in need. If we then look at the carers break fund, Catherine spoke briefly around a personal budget. So there's carers who do not access that level of the carers offer, they can access the carers break fund. It's a small pot of money which enables the carer to be able to take a break. And so often we'll hear people say, but I can't take a break. I can't leave the person I care for. And that's exactly why this break fund is there. You don't have to leave the property if you're caring under the same roof as that person. You could use that small pot of money to maybe pay for your Netflix subscription, or perhaps for Audible, or it could be, particularly in this beautiful weather, for you to be able to have 10 minutes outside to put some bedding plants in. It may be that actually it's going to help you with buying some resources to do something you enjoy doing, whether it's a little bit of model making or whether it's some craft. Equally, it could be to buy extra data for your phone for you to be able to interact with others. And then if we look at benefits, and this is something that Catherine's touched on. So we have a partnership agreement with Citizens Advice, and we, through that, have specialist workers who will then carry out a benefits assessment for you as the working age carer. Are you getting everything and accessing everything that is right for you at this moment in time? And obviously they will look as well at the person that you care for, what benefits they're receiving. We have a peer support service whereby carers have the opportunity to support each other. We provide around about 30 of those over the month. Some of them are online and some of them are face-to-face, but they are based around what carers are asking for. And for some carers, they really want to meet with other carers who are experiencing something similar. So it may be around a specific condition. So for example, autism. We have a number of carers that really want to be able to communicate and interact with carers who are experiencing those same issues, whether it can be sensory, whether it can be processing, all of that. Equally, there are other carers who just want to meet with somebody over a cup of tea, or perhaps a shared interest. It may be craft, it may be planting apple trees, just to have that understanding and that unwritten permission to really talk candidly. Because so many carers say, I really can't share much more with the people that are immediately surrounding me because they just won't understand. Other carers do. And equally with our skills workshops, they're for carers to actually look at what is it that I need now for me. My young person may have been at residential school up to the age of 18, and now they're coming home, and actually is there first aid stuff that I need to know? Can I access that? What about my own thoughts, my own feelings, and my own challenges that I've got about this caring role? How can I explore those? Is anyone else feeling the same, or am I completely alone with this? And what about the changes and actually, okay, I'm now caring for this person full time, and I may also be caring for an elderly relative. The dynamics are changing. I am a parent, I'm also an unpaid carer. So those workshops, again, are built around what carers are asking for. Next slide, please, Debbie. Technology and caring. Technology still can provide us with a few worries. It can also provide us with huge opportunities. And we're going to look at both of these now. So the NHS app is absolutely fundamentally important. As a carer, you can have proxy access to the cared for person's record on there. You need to have a conversation with your GP to decide at what level that permission is. So it can be as straightforward as ordering repeat medication, but it actually can also be around appointments and looking at records. My Care, carers feedback time and time again, the real great benefits of My Care. A lot of hospital trusts use this, Royal Devon University Healthcare Trust too, and their proxy access is really, really helpful. You can get scan results, blood results, you can sort out appointments, all of that. But really what supports that so well for carers is they have a very open, accessible, responsive and helpful tech team should you be having any queries or just finding it difficult to navigate. If we look at the Jointly app, when carers register with Devon Carers, they get a digital code, which means they can access additional information and support through Carers UK, which is a large organisation, and we are an umbrella organisation of that. And that Jointly app has all information there for carers, and it enables you to collate everything into one easy space. The Independent Living Centre, many of you may know that already, and they offer solutions for people to stay active, to stay safe and independent, really promoting those levels of independence. So please do take a look at their website, look at their technology, go and visit them down in Newton Abbot. They are staffed by OTs and physios and will give the best advice. Bridget is a relatively new self-help tool for carers, and it is there for carers as in their own right, and it is also there for organisations who support carers like Devon Carers. Really helpful information, and it's kept current. Mobilise is another app and another website that provides free online support for carers, so do take some time and have a browse at that. If you're somebody that is worried by technology, or you're not feeling confident, or you haven't quite got the capacity to get your head around something new, AbilityNet are really great. They provide free help with technology. It could be that you're finding something particularly difficult to log into. It could be you've got a new device and you don't know what to do with it when you get it out the box. They will provide that support for you. We've spoken a little bit today around benefits. Now, Turn to Us is an exceedingly supportive website. Most importantly, it speaks in layman's terms. And that's really vital for getting things into your head in a way that's right for you. So with Turn to Us, they have three key elements. They have a benefits calculator tool, which is really great, and you can put in specific information. It will give you the information back as to your eligibility to apply. It won't tell you that you will get it, but it will guide you to the right benefits to apply for, so you're not wasting time. There's also a grant finding tool on there, really helpful if you're needing extra finance, extra support at home, and actually it works in specific areas. So it may be that a child with a disability, you can go through the grant tool and it will search for those that provide grants for that particular situation. But it would also offer other things. It may be that you're part of a particular faith and there's certain grants there for people who identify from that faith. It may be that actually you've worked in hospitality or you've worked in aeronauticals, and there's different that will absolutely slim it down for you so you can apply for the right things. And the third element they have is relatively new, and it's really helpful guide and support through the whole PIP process, the personal independence process. And then if we also look at the government website, they provide obviously benefits advice in the same way as Turn to Us, but Turn to Us is slightly more layman's terms, as I say. Next slide, please, Debbie. And so looking now then at useful information for you to take forward. So when Debbie sends the information out after this webinar, the links will be there for you as well. So there's Devon Carers at West Bank, and the information that you can access through them, the help you can access, the advice and the support. And equally, the Devon Young Carers at West Bank, another real rod of support. And as Paddy's explained today, what can be accessed through Devon Young Carers. The Department for Work and Pensions, the benefits there, as I spoke about on the previous slide, good to explore. And of course, the Devon family hubs, really important what's happening where for you. And if you've not yet come across the Esteem team in Eastern Devon, please do have a look. They're a community interest company and they are there to provide whole family support, as indeed are our colleagues at Parental Minds, also in East Devon. Whole family support and very beneficial. We have great privilege of working in partnership with these organisations. And finally, with Devon County Council's Transitions Guide. It is such a helpful document and will really guide you the way through this time of your life in caring. So I will pass you on to the next slide, please, Debbie.
Catherine, you're on mute.
So to bring this to a close, we hope you find this webinar useful. So just to bring you to the top tips, it's plan ahead, establish good communication with professionals, and make sure you access support for the whole family. So before we move on to kind of questions, I just wanted to pass on a couple of thank yous, if I may. Can I thank Chrissy Franklin for doing a lot of the preliminary work for this webinar, and also to Andy Hurd for his assistance in editing the videos. Thank you.
Okay, so we've had some really good questions and very heartfelt questions in the chat bar. We've got a few minutes, but I think a lot of them are going to be answered in us sending out the slide deck. So Naomi, you ask about how do you access all of these services, about Carers Break Fund and assessments and all of that stuff. So it's basically contact Devon Carers and all of those links. That's what you need to do. Justin, you were looking for some clarification around support for your daughter who's 16. On the slides near the beginning, I think it would be good for you to possibly get in contact with the Transitions to Adult Social Care, just to speak to the information advice line there, and the email is on the slides again in the front. So again, I can you can drop me a line, an email if you want to reach out to me directly, and I can put you in contact. But certainly, Transitions to Adult Social Care team. Becky, you've asked, obviously a very heartfelt that you're feeling very overwhelmed, and you're not getting the support. So I think a definite call to Devon Carers is needed to get the support quite urgently for you, so that you do feel supported and help. So I think please do make that call out, and maybe we'll try and make a to me directly, and I can try and put in contact one of these lovely people that have spoken today. And Laura, you said about who makes the transitions assessments. Can parents do this? So the transitions assessment for carers is through Devon Carers, as we've spoken about. Again, if it's for an individual or young person themselves, it would be through the Transitions to Adult Social Care team possibly. So you might want to so again, have a think, and all those contact details are on that slide right at the beginning. If I go right to the beginning of the slide, we've got these. We've got the Transition to Adult Social Care team, and then we've got information advice to Devon Carers. Okay, and then we've got Becky, currently 14, been out of school for a while. So it's obviously quite a complex situation there, which we can't go into that. I think that probably needs quite a lot of, I mean, it looks like you've done quite a lot of reaching out, and it's a shame that you haven't had a resolution there. But again, maybe make contact with me and we can see or escalate this and see what's happening with that particular situation. And then I think the others were all in in light of the issues that we were having with the video and sound and all of that jazz, which I do apologize again for all of that. So we will put these questions and answers on the website as well in response to that. And lastly, I just want to go back to the final thing, which is around the feedback. We've got, you know, this is part of our first set of webinars that we're doing around transitions. We want to hear your views. We want to know what was good for you, what you enjoyed, what you want to hear more about, what topics you want to hear about. So please do either use the QR code, or when we send out the slides, the link will be there and you can send a response back. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you to the brilliant speakers, and apologies again for all the technical issues, but have a good day. Thanks again. Bye then.
Thank you, Debbie.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye now.